What if your anxiety isn't a malfunction, but a message? What if the discomfort you feel in social situations isn't because you're broken, but because the world wasn't built for the way your mind moves? For many neurodivergent people, those with autism, Asperger's, or somewhere in the wide, often misunderstood spectrum, anxiety isn't just a passing state. It's a constant companion. But it's not a flaw. It's a signal, a quiet protest against environments that feel too loud, too fast, too uncertain. A reaction not to something wrong inside you, but something misaligned around you. You might have spent your life trying to decode social settings that never quite made sense. Rooms filled with invisible rules, conversations with unspoken expectations, faces that smiled but meant something else. And all the while, your mind, analytical, deeply perceptive, wired for pattern, was trying to piece it all together. Not because you didn't care, but because you cared so much it hurt. Because neurodiversity is not a deviation from the norm. It's a variation within it. We've been taught to treat autism and Asperger's as clinical problems. Things to diagnose, manage, maybe even cure. But what if we saw them instead as natural cognitive differences? Ways of thinking that are detailed, intense, and deeply attuned to meaning. What if we stopped asking how to fix the person and started asking how to fix the systems that fail them? You see, when a mind that values depth is forced into a world obsessed with surface, anxiety is inevitable. Because the neurodivergent brain doesn't miss social cues. Often it sees too many. Every raised eyebrow, every pause, every inconsistency, it doesn't slip past unnoticed. It echoes. It spirals. The anxiety doesn't come from being oblivious. It comes from overprocessing, from seeing the threads of social fabric, and fearing what happens when you pull the wrong one. And then there's the empathy myth. How often have you heard that autistic people lack it? But what if the opposite were true? What if many neurodivergent people feel so much, so deeply, that it becomes overwhelming? What if the real problem is not a lack of empathy, but a mismatch in how it's expressed and received? There's a name for this, the double empathy problem. It's not that one person is incapable of understanding the other, it's that they're speaking different emotional dialects. And when that happens, miscommunication breeds anxiety. Not because you're cold, but because you've been misunderstood too many times. You may long for real connection, but the world often rewards performance over honesty. Social life becomes theater, a script you didn't write, and every line you speak feels rehearsed, distant from who you really are. That gap between your truth and the version of yourself you feel forced to present, that's where anxiety thrives. And masking is survival. It's the subtle art of acting normal, of suppressing stims, forcing eye contact, smiling at the right moments, mirroring what you think people want. It's exhausting. It's invisible labor, and it's unpaid. Imagine going to work every day, putting in twice the energy just to appear typical, and never getting credit for it. That's what masking does. It depletes you, cognitively, emotionally, until burnout becomes inevitable. But it hasn't always been this way. Long ago, in smaller, more diverse communities, people with different ways of thinking had roles that suited them. The observer, the memory keeper, the toolmaker, the pattern seer. In tribal societies, deep focus and intense curiosity weren't pathologized. They were honored. But in a modern world designed for speed, noise, and shallow multitasking, those same traits become liabilities. Still, the digital world has opened a strange kind of portal. Online, you can pause before you reply. You can curate your space, choose your pace. For many neurodivergent people, the internet has become a sanctuary. But even here, anxiety finds its way in. Through social metrics, hypervisibility, and the pressure to perform in new digital masks. And then there's the classroom, the place where so many begin to feel the first fractures, rigid routines, fluorescent lights, teachers who reward compliance over creativity, education systems that punish difference instead of adapting to it. So many children learn that being different means being difficult, and they carry that lesson into adulthood, quietly, painfully. But something shifts when you finally hear the word that names your experience. Autism, Asperger's, neurodivergent. For some, that moment comes in childhood. For others, especially women, people of color, or those in under-resourced communities, it comes late. But when it does, it's not the end of a path. It's the beginning. Diagnosis can be a turning point, not a label, but a mirror. A way to say, oh, that's why I feel the way I do. A way to forgive yourself for years of confusion, for the anxiety that was never yours to carry alone. But not everyone gets that mirror. Because intersectionality matters. When neurodivergence meets racism or classism or gender bias, the anxiety compounds. Fewer diagnoses, less support, more stigma. Imagine being misunderstood not just because of how your brain works, but because of how the world sees your skin, your voice, your culture. That's the weight many carry, quietly, invisibly. And so we ask, what would it look like to build a world that assumes cognitive difference instead of resisting it? A world with quiet spaces in public places. Schools designed around curiosity, not conformity. Workplaces led by neurodivergent thinkers who redesign systems, not just adapt to them. A culture where emotional accessibility matters as much as physical access. A culture of cognitive hospitality. Maybe then, anxiety wouldn't be a constant alarm. Maybe it would finally quiet down. Because here's the truth. Your anxiety isn't a symptom of weakness. It's the signal of a strong mind in a hostile environment. It's not asking you to change yourself. It's asking you to change your surroundings. To find, or build, spaces where you don't have to mask, explain, or translate your inner world into something more palatable. You've spent enough time wondering what's wrong with you. Maybe now it's time to ask a different question. What kind of world could honor the way you think? And what if that world starts with the decision to stop hiding and start listening to yourself?